Section 300.10 addresses bonding jumpers. Where equipment grounding conductors are not included in the raceway or cable, an equipment bonding jumper shall be provided around all service equipment enclosures and all non-current carrying metal parts of equipment connected to the system. The Arlington website states that the snap-on fittings are Underwriters Laboratories listed for grounding and bonding. This signifies that Underwriters Laboratories has tested and approved them for use as an equipment grounding conductor. However, they are only Underwriters Laboratories listed for use with metal-clad and armored cables. Section 300.10 mandates an equipment bonding jumper around all non-current carrying metal parts of equipment connected to the system. This encompasses the sheath of armored cable when it functions as the equipment grounding conductor. Based on the information, the acceptability of Arlington snap-on fittings with armored cable when the sheath is the equipment grounding conductor is not definitively clear. Equipment bonding jumpers are code required. These fittings are only Underwriters Laboratories listed for metal-clad and armored cables. It is advisable to avoid using Arlington snap-on fittings on armored cable when the sheath serves as the equipment grounding conductor. If you're using armored cable with the sheath as the equipment grounding conductor, employing an equipment bonding jumper specifically designed for that purpose is recommended. This ensures a proper electrical connection and system grounding. When dealing with electrical installations, especially those involving grounding and bonding, it's crucial to adhere to the National Electrical Code and relevant Underwriters Laboratories standards. The equipment grounding conductor is a vital safety component in electrical systems, providing a low impedance path for fault current to return to the source, thereby facilitating the operation of overcurrent protective devices like circuit breakers or fuses. A properly installed and functioning equipment grounding conductor minimizes the risk of electrical shock and fire hazards. Let's delve deeper into equipment grounding conductors. The equipment grounding conductor is designed to provide a path for fault current to flow back to the source, which in turn causes the overcurrent protection device, such as a circuit breaker or fuse, to trip and energize the circuit. This is a critical safety feature that helps to prevent electrical shock and fire hazards. Now let's look closer at bonding jumpers. Bonding jumpers are used to connect different metal parts of an electrical system together to ensure that they are at the same electrical potential. This helps to prevent voltage differences that could create a shock hazard. Bonding jumpers are often used around service equipment enclosures and other metal parts of equipment that are connected to the electrical system. There are different types of equipment grounding conductors, including wires, metal raceways, and the metal sheath of armored cable. The type of equipment grounding conductor used will depend on the specific application and the requirements of the National Electrical Code. Metal raceways, such as electrical metallic tubing or rigid metal conduit, can serve as equipment grounding conductors provided they are properly installed and meet the requirements of the National Electrical Code. The metal sheath of armored cable can also serve as an equipment grounding conductor, but it must be properly bonded to the metal enclosures or equipment that it is connected to. It's important to remember that the equipment grounding conductor must be properly sized to handle the maximum fault current that could occur in the circuit. The size of the equipment grounding conductor is determined by the size of the overcurrent protection device protecting the circuit. The National Electrical Code provides tables and guidelines for determining the appropriate size of the equipment grounding conductor for different applications. Proper installation of the equipment grounding conductor is essential to ensure its effectiveness. The equipment grounding conductor must be securely connected to all metal enclosures, equipment, and other conductive parts of the electrical system. Connections must be made using approved methods such as grounding screws, lugs, or clamps. It is also important to avoid any sharp bends or kinks in the equipment grounding conductor, as these can increase its impedance and reduce its effectiveness. When using the metal sheath of armored cable as the equipment grounding conductor, it is important to ensure that the sheath is properly bonded to the metal enclosures or equipment that it is connected to. This can be achieved using bonding bushings or other approved methods. Bonding bushings are special types of fittings that are designed to provide a low impedance connection between the metal sheath of the cable and the metal enclosure. Now, regarding Arlington snap-on fittings, It is essential to verify that these fittings are specifically listed and labeled for use as equipment grounding conductors with armored cable. The underwriter's laboratory's listing ensures that the product has been tested and meets specific safety standards for its intended use. The listing will specify the types of cables and applications for which the fitting is suitable. If the Arlington snap-on fittings are not specifically listed for use as equipment grounding conductors with armored cable, then it is not advisable to use them for this purpose. Using unlisted or unapproved fittings could compromise the safety of the electrical system and increase the risk of electrical shock or fire hazards. It is always best to use fittings that are specifically designed and listed for the intended application to ensure a safe and reliable electrical connection. In situations where the suitability of a particular fitting for use as an equipment grounding conductor is uncertain, it is always best to consult with a qualified electrical inspector or engineer. They can provide guidance on the proper selection and installation of equipment grounding conductors and bonding jumpers to ensure compliance with the National Electrical Code and other applicable standards. The National Electrical Code provides specific requirements for equipment grounding and bonding in Article 250. This article covers a wide range of topics, including the types of equipment grounding conductors that are permitted, the size of equipment grounding conductors, and the methods for connecting equipment grounding conductors to metal enclosures and equipment. It is essential to be familiar with the requirements of Article 250 when designing and installing electrical systems to ensure that they are properly grounded and bonded. In addition to the National Electrical Code, there may be other applicable standards or regulations that govern equipment grounding and bonding in certain jurisdictions. It is important to check with local authorities to determine if there are any additional requirements that must be met. Proper equipment grounding and bonding is essential for the safety of electrical systems. By following the requirements of the National Electrical Code and other applicable standards, it is possible to minimize the risk of electrical shock and fire hazards and ensure that electrical systems operate safely and reliably. When installing electrical systems, it is important to pay close attention to the details of equipment grounding and bonding. This includes selecting the appropriate type and size of equipment grounding conductors, ensuring that connections are made properly, and verifying that the system is properly grounded and bonded before energizing it. Regular inspections and maintenance of electrical systems can also help to ensure that equipment grounding and bonding is maintained over time. This includes checking for loose connections, corrosion, and other signs of damage that could compromise the effectiveness of the equipment grounding conductor. If any problems are found, they should be corrected promptly to prevent potential hazards. The integrity of the equipment grounding conductor and bonding connections is crucial for maintaining a safe electrical system. Any degradation or damage to these components can increase the risk of electrical shock and fire hazards. Therefore, it is essential to perform regular inspections and maintenance to identify and address any potential problems. It is always best to err on the side of caution when it comes to equipment grounding and bonding. If there is any doubt about the suitability of a particular fitting or method, it is best to consult with a qualified electrical inspector or engineer. They can provide guidance on the proper selection and installation of equipment grounding conductors and bonding jumpers to ensure compliance with the National Electrical Code and other applicable standards. In conclusion, while Arlington snap-on fittings may be underwriters' laboratories listed for grounding and bonding with metal-clad and armored cables, it is crucial to verify the specific listing for use as equipment grounding conductors with armored cable. Equipment bonding jumpers are code-required, and using a specifically designed equipment bonding jumper is recommended for optimal safety and compliance with the National Electrical Code. Always prioritize safety and consult with qualified professionals when in doubt.